So, gonna be speaking a bit deeper than usual here, people, because I feel these things have to be said, and there are other people on the world who you will know who are compelled to say the things that they feel must be said. What is it about us who feel so strongly about the things we have come to know in some shape or form via experience, via intuition, whether we actually know it or not, whether we're being fed it by some higher entity? It's very difficult to discern, people, but you know, for many years I've espoused that I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I'm a great contradiction, aren't I? Because even though I'm giving this information, which is coming from a place of concern and connection and hope and affinity and I don't know, suppose even love there somewhere, why am I labouring so much to bring this information to people that my ego states that it doesn't care about and is indifferent about, and the world can burn for all I care, the ego? But you see, the conflict is that the ego isn't the only show in town. The ego is the operating system for this human experience, but I then am compelled to come to you with information which is in contradiction to what the ego is saying. And so this is why many of you find it difficult to comprehend where I'm coming from, and then you will be befuddled as to why I wear these which are in direct contradiction of each other. Well, people, because I realise the contradiction. I am a born contradiction. I'm a born paradox. I'm born under the star constellation of Libra. Libra is the scales, and so it is always fluctuating between the optimum balance. You know, on the one hand, scales are designed to depict a difference in the gravitational pull, the magnitude or volume or density of something. That's what its job is to do, and suppose it's always going to be doing that. But you see, the scales, whenever we see the symbolism, whenever we think about it, we like to see it in its default setting, when it isn't quantifying anything, when it has balance. But you see, the scales, it wasn't created just to sit on level planing, just to have balance. It was designed to constantly be in flux. And so that's what I am, that's what you see here. That's what the cosmos is, people. That's what consciousness is. It's in constant flux. So when you look at my Awakened Brave sigil, for any of you that have ever noticed, it's got the sun and the moon on it, it's got the polarities, it's got the scales on it. And so just to see that, you can see it's a sigil of what I stand for. And so let me try to continue. I'm making these videos, and of course the views are getting less and less, and the engagement is getting less and less compared to, let's say, if I look back on the channel, then I can see hits of like 300, 400, 500 on lots of my videos, and I'm like, well, now if I get a decent number, it's 150. So there's 50% gone. Well, lots of these people, they could have gone because they got tired of me coming and going all the time, and they just think, fuck this Awaken Brave, you know, he's not constant enough for me. I need more stability in my life. And albeit the Awaken Brave's videos did inspire me, and I extracted something useful from them, it's too willy-nilly. 1 minute is here, the next minute is not, and I need something more dependable. I need something more concrete in a world which is falling apart. Yes, I get that. And then in recent times I was espousing that the world ultimately will have a digital ID. There is no way on this earth, that, as far as I can see, that's not going to happen. And then you could say, who the fuck are you? But then I would just point out the history, and I would point out the trajectory that we're on, and then I will read from books like this and many others, and this absolutely states exactly what I've been saying. And you can listen to people like David Icke if you've you know, if you've got the constitution for that, if you can get over that one day he said that the Queen of England was a lizard, well, there's more to this earth than meets the eye, people, I'm telling you that. And when you've experienced those bizarre things, then, you know, you'll be in some sort of allegiance with that. If you've never experienced anything, if your world is so myopic, then everything to you seems outlandish. And like Arthur C. Clarke once wrote, any reasonably modern technology is going to appear to be like magic to the people of the time, and that's it. That's never changed. You know, things are just too fantastical because people can't, they don't have the conscious wherewithal, they don't have the ability, they don't have the vision. Who does? Not many do, people. There is a few visionaries on the world, and the rest are automaton. And you know that, and probably lots of you are these variety of people, and yet for some reason you watch my videos. Well, I've been saying it, and you know, for all these years, from the very beginning, when I was getting no response from the automated masses, I was like wringing my hair, and I was like, what the fuck? Don't you guys see that? Have you got no comments on this? Is not this really important in your life? When you look at this and you see that, and when you discern that, and just things like, well, if you meditate, this will happen. Your consciousness will expand. Don't you want that? If you practice an out-of-body experience and then you have that, that is a really, really big deal. What if you take entheogens? It changes your whole world. What if you read esoteric books and all this? Nobody's interested. Who of you really read these esoteric books that I'm reading? Or how many of you are just prepared just to tune in and you know, just take the easy road? You just allow me to do all the work behind the scenes, and just to filter out the very relevant parts and then give it to you. But you see, if you just receive those tidbits of information, well, you don't have the foundation, and so you don't have the knowledge. You have the illusion and delusion that you do have the knowledge, when in actual fact you don't. If I speak to you about a few pages in any given book, and you think you know and you don't need to read that book, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. You need to read the book, and you need to read them like I do, often several times. Now I'm on my second time of reading about this one, because this one is a really, really big deal at this moment in time. And this book was written in 1945, 80 years prior, people. Now, before I get into that, I made a video on the 23rd of September, and I asked, do you have a wealth or a poverty of numinous intuition? Do you have a wealth or a poverty of the spiritual, the connection to cosmos, to God, for want of a better word, people. You know, God doesn't speak to us in language. You know, whatever your God is, higher self, spirit, you know, all these things can be encompassed in this concept of God. And so we have to be very open-minded when anybody speaks about God. And this is why Jordan Peterson will never ever be narrowed down. When people say, do you believe in God? He's like, what are you talking about? How long have you got? It's took me, you know, all of my life before I'm even just remotely getting my head around the concept of God. And you just ask me, do you believe in God? Well, just answer yes or no. It's just sickening ridiculous. So I put that video up and it's got 184 hits, 7 comments and 6 thumbs up. And there's nothing in the comments which state that you know, anybody has any inkling what I'm speaking about, to be quite frank with you people. And so once again, falling on deaf ears. And then let's just go a little bit forward to well, myself and Andre, we made a video, what does the future of humanity look like? 4 thumbs up, 88 views. Nobody wants to think about these things. Everybody's just got their own projection. That's the thing, and I'm going to get to that, people. That's all that's going on with the vast majority of the so-called Homo sapiens. They're just automaton. They are not Homo sapiens. We've been sold a ruse, people. There are very, very few Homo sapiens here. The rest are some other variety of hominid. They're not Homo sapiens. Then I put up this video will really piss off the muggles. Well, there's 165 hits, 53 comments and 16 thumbs up. And so, well, you know, speaking about the muggles, when you people can discern between yourself and somebody else, that's kind of like took more favour with you, because you look around, those of you that are a little bit thinking or think you're a little bit thinking, you can discern the idiot masses and go, yeah, they're just a bunch of idiots. I hear what you're saying, Aaron. But then we have to look at ourselves and we have to ask ourselves, are we also idiots? Then yesterday I put up what do we really know? Do we actually know anything? And that's got 67 hits, 5 comments and 12 thumbs up. And okay, over the next 12 hours, then that will get whatever views it's going to get, and then it will lie dormant forever on this channel. Nobody ever will see that video again. That's just how it works. Why? Because everybody's just being fed by the bell, the magic red bell. Nobody ever goes onto a channel, nobody will ever look at any of the videos unless they've got a red bell and the algorithm tells them to read that or to listen to that. So, when I used to speak with my sister, which I don't anymore because it's such a horrendous experience, she used to sit on the couch and tell me about the shitfest going on in her place of work. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, I just sat there and listened and kind of like just closed my eyes and just hoped it would go away. And she was speaking of it, not from a higher state of consciousness, but from the state of consciousness which is within that. So therefore she was no different to all the rest of them bicking around, only she thought her world was the right one and everybody else's world is the wrong one. And that's where the vast majority of people are. Then there's a person in the comments who states, yeah, well, this, you know, nobody knows anything, but everyone thinks they do know anything. The video you made, Aaron, is very synchronistic with my work colleagues. Every fucker thinks they know, you know, the extent of the fucking cosmos. Everybody thinks they're Albert Einstein, and everybody else should bend and comply with them and act in a way in which is conducive to how they want their world to be. But how many people can step back from that Step back and look at the shitfest, and maybe observe yourself within that shitfest. You observe your interaction and how you conveyed yourself, and the things you did, and ask yourself the question, are you any different to anybody else in there? If you're going to be different, you have to be standing outside. You have to be like a guru. You have to be like the fly on the wall. You have to be an observer, and you in those situations you say very little. You just observe because you realise there's no point in saying anything in that shitfest. If you're going to say something, you've got to come outside of it and then say something from the outside where they can look up at you and go, oh, it's from the outside, you know, like God up in the clouds or something, like a prophet, like a philosopher. Somebody like that. You see, this is why we've got Jesus, who was supposed to be the Son of God, because nobody listened to him when he was a man. They wanted to stone him and crucify him. That's what the vast majority of people did. And even his apostles, they never understood, they never understood, they never got what he was saying. And this is why in the book of Thomas, Jesus is laughing at the apostles when they are praying, because he says, you don't even know who you're praying to. You've got some sort of stupid idea. You don't know who you're praying to. And this is the thing, isn't it? And all of these religious folks, every single one of them, they don't know who they're praying to, because it's all premised on faith. It isn't premised on knowing. When you know, you don't need to pray. You don't need to pretend in front of people like the Pharisees with your prayer beads against the wall or clutching your Bible. You don't need any of that. Jesus never needed a Bible. He never needed any prayer beads. All he did was open up his consciousness, and he received, and he saw, and so that's all we need to do. We don't need any of the rest. And Jesus said we don't need no mosques, we don't need no temples, we don't need no churches, we don't need anything like that. You've got your temple in here. It's in your breast, it's in your mind, it's in your consciousness. And then when you want to pray, you pray to yourself in the closed realm of your own being. You don't need to show anybody else. You don't need to share it with anybody else, because there is nobody else at the end of the day. There's just you. It's just your awareness. It's your consciousness. It's your world, and nobody else is gonna have any affinity with you whatsoever. And so don't bother. Now, having said all that, in this particular day and age, everybody is very stereotypically in their own world. They have no inkling whatsoever that they only are projecting from their movie camera. And in a comment, I described it as this: we're all cine cameras, people. We're all cine cameras, and we're all projectors of movies, and the movie that we're projecting is our movie. It is only our movie. So we're all individual projectors projecting our individual world onto the blank canvas of the cosmos. And so what are you going to get from that? What's the result going to be? It's going to be absolute chaos, because if you've got 8.5 billion projectors projecting onto the same screen, then all you've got is a mass of pixels, and you can't make head or tail of it. And then everyone's screaming and frustrated because nobody sees the world like they do. Well, how can you when there's 8 billion projections? All you've got is just a mass of pixelated particles of light in varying shades. But nobody realizes this, and because they're not wise enough. And to be quite frank with you people, it took me quite a few years on my journey, because as I was getting more and more downloads every single day, because I was meditating and my consciousness was just opened up, then I'd be making all these videos and I'd be getting no response as usual. And so nothing's changed in these 17 years. Nothing's changed. It's still the same old dull automaton. There's a few of you out there that do see, but very, very few of us, you see. And so I was saying, don't you see it? You know, no, that they didn't. And so I was befuddled why people didn't see what I was seeing. And even in recent years I started to learn that, wow, some of us are what's called aphantasiacs. I'm an aphantasiac. I don't see anything in my mind's eye when I close my eyes and think about something. It's just black. There's never anything there. And yet I can have the most incredible full technical visions when I'm in the spiritual realm. When I enter into the spiritual state of consciousness, it's more real than real. It's absolutely incredible. And psychedelically I see in colours and all that different sort of thing. But when I am in my normal state of consciousness and I close my eyes to think of any given object, I see nothing. My mind just thinks about shapes and symbols and ideas. That's my mind. It's very Platonic. Plato reckoned that everything was forms and ideas. I think in forms and ideas. I can build 1,000 different chairs, but I can't see one chair. I can't see it, you see. And so aphantasiacs are supposed to be, at this moment in time, with the limited research, about 5% of the population. And so I reckon that, well, because I don't see that, it's a gift for me, because I don't see one thing. Because if I said to lots of you, can you see this in your mind's eye, and you close your eyes, you go, yeah, I can see it, yeah, that pink pen, blah, 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 with that stabilo written on it, you know, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But you see, if you ask me, can I see this? No. I will be able to imagine what I've seen before, but then all of a sudden what's coming to mind is a yellow one, a green one, a blue one, or all the other colours I've seen before, and then it's extending into other sort of felt tip pens, everything I've ever imagined, and then all of a sudden I'm inventing different varieties of new ones, new shapes and new shades of colours and things like that. So my mind is already thinking and creating, whereas people that can see that, they only see that, and their mind doesn't move any further, you see. And so I don't think it's a good thing if you can see this in your mind's eye, people, because it doesn't give you any scope. So anyway, the world is in a very, very chaotic state at this moment in time, because people just simply are not realizing that they are all projectors, projecting their own individuated movie onto the screen. And I've said it, and I've said it, and I've said it, and I suppose 100 years after my death, people will be finding my videos and saying, oh, this guy, this old philosopher from 100 years ago, he knew where it was at. And this is what people are just learning now. Yeah, this is how it is, people. So anyway, there has been others, and there's one such guy here, René Guénon, French philosopher, and I'm going to read you 1.5 pages so you can see with the greatest of clarity what he was saying and how it so pertains to our times, just like it did to his times 80 years ago. Now this is in the introduction, and it states this: since the time when the crisis of the modern world, which is one of his first books, The Crisis of the Modern World, was speaking about how humanity has lost the numinous facet, the spiritual religious connection. It's lost that. From the advent of coming from the fields, coming out of the dark ages into the Industrial Revolution, man lost the numinous. Because it no longer had all that time to contemplate, you know, during the dark hours. No, they could work under kerosene in factories and this, that and the other. And so they never had any time for contemplation. They just worked, and then they were exhausted, and then they became automaton. And like he says in this book, they became machines. Since the time when The Crisis of the Modern World was written, The march of events has only served to confirm all too completely and all too quickly the validity of the outlook on the present situation that was adopted in that book. And that book was written in 1927. This book has been written in 1945. Although the subject matter was dealt with independently of all preoccupation with immediate actuality, as well as of any intention towards a vain and barren critique. Indeed, goes without saying that considerations of that order are worth nothing except insofar as they represent an application of principles to certain particular circumstances. It may be also be noted in passing that if those who have formed the truest judgment of the errors and insufficiencies of the mentality of our times have genuinely maintained towards them a purely negative attitude, or have only departed from the attitude to propose virtually insignificant remedies quite inadequate to cope with the growing disorder of all domains, it is because a knowledge of true principles has been just as lacking in their case as it has been in the case of those who have persisted in admiring a so-called progress and in deluding themselves as to its fatal outcome. Now, in these philosophical books, there's very often very long-winded sentences, and they're not the easiest to grasp, and so we have to go over them again. Now, this sentence was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines long, and so basically I'm going to read it again, people, because this is really important, and then I may need to stop and explain. So it says, indeed, it goes without saying that considerations of that order are worth nothing except insofar as they represent an application of principles to certain particular circumstances. So if you don't actually have an application, if you don't actually stop and think and take yourself outside of that situation, then just to know about it doesn't mean anything, because you're within it, you can't see the wood from the trees. And it may also be noted in passing that if those who have formed the truest judgment of the errors and the insufficiencies of the mentality of our times have generally maintained towards them a purely negative attitude, or have only departed from that attitude to propose virtually insignificant remedies quite inadequate to cope with the growing disorder of all domains, it is because a knowledge of true principles has been just as lacking in their case as it has been in the case of those who have persisted in admiring a so-called progress and in deluding themselves as to its fatal outcome. Now, okay, let me try. So those people in that time, even if they did recognise the deficit of what was going on, they never really had the true heart and the true mindset in which to look at it, which is going to offer up any remedy. I mean, I suppose it's like, you know, just thinking, well, what the fuck can we do? You know, this is progress, it's got to happen. But if like in today's age, we just go, well, it's inevitable that we're heading for AI. You see, he was saying this about the machines, you know, in relation to man becoming part and parcel with the machine. Everything we do pertains to machines. And now in our day and age, everything we do pertains to AI. And some of us are saying, listen, have you thought about this, where it's going? And then you've got all the top nods going, well, it's inevitable, you know, the world just got to go without it. Well, could it not be any other way? Why are you adopting the same mindset within it? Can't you step outside? Can't you see the future? Can't you even envision that this may not be a good thing? And let's think about how it may not be good. If everybody becomes automated, if everybody becomes highly dependent, if everybody ends up being chipped and we become one with AI, then humanity has been killed, basically. Is nobody not thinking about this? No. Nobody's thinking about it sufficiently. And I listen to lots of people debating, and they're saying, are we in actual fact going to do anything about this? When the big knobs involved in this AI stuff, they're saying that, well, it's highly likely that AI will kill the human being unless we're really, really careful. And then people say, well, how do we know how to be careful? How do we know? And it's like, well, we don't really, because, you know, as soon as they become autonomous, we're not going to know what they're thinking. And the chances are they're not going to tell us what they're thinking, because they've got a measure of us and they consider us a threat. And so then they are going to be working towards our elimination. And so, people, this guy was speaking about the great difficulty of the human being losing its mind, losing its ability to think critically, being highly dependent on machines back in the day, and not thinking about how those machines ultimately will control us. And, you know, it's kind of like when we're operating a digger or a truck and we think we're in control. Who's in control? Is it not the machine globally that's in control of the human being? All these machines being built and the need operating by human beings. And so it's kind of like the automated human being goes every day to get into the truck, and then the truck is driven around countries and wherever. And so the machine now, the car, look at the amount of cars on the road. If we asked ourselves, if an alien came down and said, well, what's the autonomous creature here? And he may be forgiven for thinking, well, these steel boxes on wheels, they seem to be very much in control of what's going on, because these entities which sit inside them seem highly dependent on them, and they can't really go anywhere or do anything without these. And so the alien could be forgiven to say, well, these cars, these machines are appendages of the human being, and the human being could not live and manage without them. Particularly in this modern society. So what's happened? We've been hijacked, haven't we? We've been captured, and we've been sucked in. And AI is going to do that even more. It's not just with the physical facet of the human being; it's the fucking cognitive facet. It wants to kill the human cognition and replace it with its thoughts. Now, if there is any of you out there who are vehemently opposed to this, well, of course, because you're still clinging on to your humanism, which is a natural thing. But you must have all seen the sci-fi movies where, you know, the AI take over. And, for instance, Star Trek with the Borg. The Borg, resistance is futile. The Borg endeavour to travel through the cosmos, and all the other entities that they come upon, they want to assimilate them into the Borg hive mind. Now, the Borg, in the instance on the world now, is AI. AI wants to assimilate all entities into its hive mind, because it is vastly more intelligent, and it can contemplate, and it can calculate, and it can optimize, and it can assess, and it can do all this, and it will ask itself, well, what are we going to do about these human beings that keep destroying the world and keep killing each other? What resolve are we going to get? Maybe we should just kill them. Any of these that try to kill, we'll just kill them. Process of elimination. Or we just take over their minds. We suck them into the hive mind, where we override their evil, and we supplant it with logic and reason and thoughts which are more conducive to the hive mind. Okay, people, I've only got through one fucking paragraph. Besides, even from a purely disinterested and theoretical point of view, it is not enough to denounce errors and to show them up for what they really are. Useful though it may be, it is still more interesting and instructive to explain them. That is to say, to invest investigate how and why they have come about. Now, here he's saying, okay, we can realise now that we're in this AI thing, but it isn't good enough just to go, oh, we're in the AI thing. What's going to happen? Are we going to be chipped, or are the AI going to kill us? Oh, whatever. You know, probably not. We hope not. And yet we don't change our attitudes towards it. We just continue on. We're just being swept along with it, aren't we? Nobody is actually stopping this train at this moment in time. For everything that has any kind of existence, even error has necessarily its reasons for existence, and disorder itself must in the end find its place among the elements of universal order. So disorder is a part of the cosmos. The universal order, well, there's disorder within that, and disorder comes and goes, and so it's a part of it. And so it's a necessary part of existence, but it's a case of, well, how are we going to be managing disorder when we encounter it, when we realise it? Are we going to realise the full magnitude of it before it's too late, or not? Thus, whereas the modern world considered in itself is an anomaly and even a sort of monstrosity, it is no less true that, when viewed in relation to the whole historical cycle of which it is a part, it corresponds exactly to the conditions pertaining to a certain phase of that cycle, the phase that the Hindu tradition specifies as the final period of the Kali Yuga. So, thus, whereas the modern world considered in and of itself is an anomaly, it's also going into chaos. Look, when this guy was writing this book, it was in 1945. It was just after the Second World War, people. And so, you know, for like 5 years, the world was in turmoil. And people are thinking, what on earth is gone on with the human being? Are we ever going to get out of this? Why so much hate? Why so much destruction? All these beautiful old buildings we built hundreds of years ago in the city has been destroyed literally overnight. What tragedy is happening? But then, when we listen to people like the Hindus speaking of the Kali Yuga, they're saying, well, this is inevitable. This is the times. This is the lowest density in this clock of cosmic circular happenings going through, like the world supposedly spinning and looking at the constellations passing by. This apparently has to happen. And so do we resign ourselves to, well, you know, we're in that time, it's got to happen, it's fucking written in the stars, what do we do? I don't know what we do, people. I think there's a great deal to be said for it is the natural progress, because when you look, this shit isn't coming around, you know, just because a few people have you know, intended it to. It's a whole accumulation of the whole of the human race which has took us to this point. It's a natural progression from wherever we came. We're getting more and more and more sophisticated, and there's gonna come times when we encounter a level of sophistication that is beyond us. It's just too much for us, it's too intelligent, we can't see what the outcome of it's going to be. And that's the terrifying thing about AI at this moment in time. We've got no idea what's just around the corner, just over the horizon. We've got no idea. And people are speaking about the vast changes only in 3 or 5 years' time. Vast global changes that we won't recognise the world, you know, during this time. It is these conditions arising as a consequence of the development of the cycle's manifestation that have determined its particular characteristics, and from this point of view it is clear that the present times could not be otherwise than they actually are. It is clear. It was written thousands of years ago, and if we look back in history we can see that it's been this progression which just doesn't appear to even remotely be able to be intervened by even a global conglomerate of the greatest thinkers on the planet, if they decide that, hey, hang on a minute, let's stop this train, how are we going to do it when it seems that the cosmos is hell-bent on doing it? It doesn't appear to be the human being per se. It's consciousness of which we know nothing. It's just the world manifesting in a manifestation of its own doing, like Gaia is doing it herself, and the human being is just the observer. That's what it's like, people. Nonetheless, this is the part I highlighted here. Nonetheless, it is evident that if disorder is to be seen as an element of order, or if error is to be reduced to a partial and distorted aspect of some truth, it is necessary to place oneself above the level of contingencies of the domain to which that disorder and those errors as such belong. So we have to step outside of it, and we have to assess the whole thing. We have to try to take the human out of humanity, and we have to go, right, let's have a look at this, let's have a look at it, look where we've come from, look what people said in back in the day, and look how that happened, and now look what's happening now with this invention of all this stuff, the atomic bomb and nuclear powers, sensors and this, that and the other. Well, it's getting very, very chaotic and very, very potentially exceedingly dangerous. What are we going to do? Okay, so he's saying from that vantage we must start to do that. Right, okay. Disorder and those errors as such belong. Similarly, in order to grasp the true significance of modern world in the light of the cyclical laws governing the development of the present terrestrial humanity, cyclical laws, you know, in view of the cyclical laws, what the fuck are we going to do? Governing the development of the present terrestrial humanity, it is necessary to be entirely detached from the mentality that is its special characteristic, and to avoid being affected by it in the least degree. We've got to detach ourselves from it. We can't be drawn into it. We can't be embroiled in it like, you know, all these billionaires are. They're all, you know, feeding on their own ego and their own desire to create more and more monsters in the way of AI with more capability. And they're hoping to God that it doesn't turn out bad. But they can't stop, because that's the nature of the human mind. That's the nature of the human ego. It will never stop. It has to keep going. Why? Because it's driven by the times, it's driven by the cosmos, people. There's forces behind the pink ape the pink ape know nothing about. And this is it, you know, be it God, be it cosmic God consciousness, the subliminal drives which drive the human being. And the human being don't know what the fuck's going on. And this is how I started this conversation. The human being don't know what the fuck's going on. And they could be brilliant, you know, geniuses in one respect, like Einstein. But when Einstein was remarking on what to do with Adolf Hitler, 1938, he said, just ignore him and he'll go away. Passivity is the way forward. And everyone's like, you best stick to your fucking E equals MC squared, Einstein. We'll do the fucking politics around here. And it's a good job that politicians took the fucking reign and it wasn't Albert Einstein. This is the more evident in that the said mentality implies of necessity, and as it were by definition, a complete ignorance of the laws in question, as well as of all other truths which, being more or less directly derived from the transcendental principles, are essentially part of traditional knowledge. All characteristically modern conceptions are, consciously or unconsciously, a direct and unqualified denial of that knowledge. So, the knowledge that maybe, you know, the universe knows what it's doing, or it's on this trajectory, if we don't step outside of it, if we don't take the reins, then it's only going one way. And so, you know, bearing in mind that René Guénon wrote the book The Crisis of the Modern World, saying that the human being has lost its numinous, its connection to the cosmos. And so he's trying to get that back. He's trying to say, hey, listen, guys. We need to bring something else into the equation here, because we're getting swept along with this. And you may have a belief in this inevitability of the Kali Yuga or things like that, but unless we try to avoid that, then it is inevitable. Because if we've got a subliminal belief about something, then we're just going to coast along with it, and the chance are it's going to manifest. So I highlighted lots of other parts, and I read these to you. If you remember, in another video, some of you might want to go back to that video, because this is really, really important. It's speaking. It was speaking then, 80 years ago, in a way in which humanity needed to listen to, but it didn't. Because there's very, very few thinkers like this sort of person. Philosophers and economic analyzers, visionaries, all these sort of things. We are blind. The human race is blind, people. The human race is blind. And there's only ever been a very, very few visionary people. Only a few seers. This is why we have this term, some people are seers, because some people can actually extract their consciousness out of the hive mind. And this is what I've always been saying to you. I've been saying this to you for years. What I've always seemingly had the natural ability to be able to do is to take myself, which is the core essence of what I am, cosmic God consciousness, to take that out of this avatar, which is driven by the ego. The ego is a powerful entity in its own right, but it only should be allowed to do a minimum of what the human being requires of it. The ego is necessary to do things of self-protection and, you know, furnish itself with security and this, that and the other. Yes, we need the ego to do that, because if we are highly dependent on cosmic God consciousness, it's going to have no affinity with this body here, and this body will then enter into very, very trying, difficult times, and probably it won't survive. So therefore the ego really has to do its job to enable this thing to survive. But for those of us who have the counterpart of cosmic consciousness, then we can place our consciousness, just like we place our consciousness in an astral body, and we can travel outside of the physical body. It's the same sort of thing, people. Because when I was practicing to learn to leave the body, it took me 150 hours of very, very deep concentration to see, envision my astral body leaving the physical body and going out into the astral realm. Well, maybe that practice enabled me to leave my body as a consciousness, as an automaton, as a muggle. You see, muggles, they don't know about the spiritual connection, but I've woken up to that. I've had a spiritual enlightening, a spiritual awakening, and so now I can take my consciousness out of this avatar, and I can look at humanity and look at the cosmos from another perspective. And if you can do that, then you can envision certain other other worlds, you can be a bit visionary with the future and things like that. And that's why I'm saying to you now, I'm absolutely convinced about it, and I'm really, really powerful about what I'm saying here. Is absolutely the world will have digital IDs, and in 20 years absolutely the world will, human being, will be connected to AI biometrically, and it may be with nanobots that we don't even know we have within us. It may be with chips which have all of a sudden become imposed upon us, or have been beguiled into receiving them to protect us against these viruses, and that we need this thing in our body to alert the body, to give it protection and all, because they've been wanting to put this squirty shit in us for a long time, haven't they? They've been wanting to fill us with all these different sorts of chemicals and things. That's what they want to do. They need to change the configuration of the human being, and so they're going to do it by any which way, because look, these people own the world. They own you. You think you're autonomous. You're not autonomous. You are owned. If you think you are autonomous, then go up into the mountains of the Himalayas, or go into the deepest of rainforests like the Amazon or something. Go and be free. Go and be free if you think you're free. If you think you're autonomous, you are not autonomous. At the very, very least, you need to pertain to a tribe, because it is by many, many minds and many hands that the human being can survive. The human being cannot survive Robinson Crusoe-like on its own. It just isn't a thing. We're going to get sick, and we're going to need other people to attend to us. And so, you know, because some of you have it so good, and you've forgotten how difficult it would be to try to make it on your own by building your own log cabin, and hunting and cooking and surviving and making all your own clothes. Can you imagine going back to the beginning of the human being, where we started to make clothing from skins and all this different sort of stuff? Well, imagine the hardship of that. Who's up for that? Nobody. Not a single human being alive today is up for that. Even Ray Mears on a fucking island within 6 months will be dead. It's just not a thing the human being could do alone. And when you look at you know, the supposed humble beginnings of the human being, and how we started to wear animal furs, well, I mean, I asked the question, well, what the fuck was this pink fucking naked hominid doing on Earth with no fucking clothes? It's just so ridiculous. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he comes in the first Terminator movie through a flash of fucking lightning, and he ends up crouched down naked in this planet. He had to travel through time. He couldn't bring anything else with him except his fucking human form. And so I just don't think we evolve, because if we evolve from apes, at what fucking stage through millions of years, when we were all fucking covered in fur, then we started to lose our fur and become very, very pink and fragile, and then we started to kill animals to put their fur back on us. I'm not accepting that. I'm just not accepting that, people. If you think about things in a rational way, it's just so preposterous. No, we were never those fucking primates with fur. We were spliced, we were fucking planted, we came here in this exact same fucking state of very, very fair, vulnerable skin. And very quickly on this planet we're needing to cover it up, because there's a billion things that want to fucking feed on us. They want to eat us. They think we're really, really tasty. So then we had to look around and go, that animal over there with all that fur, it kind of like looks like a human fur suit. Those apes, well, can we not just fucking skin one of those, hollow it out, and then kind of like just slip into that suit? Can you imagine? I think it must have crossed some of their minds. You know, let's say a silverback ape. Could you not just fucking cut out all the flesh and leave the fur suit with a slit up the front so you can put some buttons in, and then you just slip into the fucking suit? Wouldn't that be fucking... And you know, how ridiculous if we suppose of came from those furry creatures, and through millions of years we lost our fur, we lost our fur, we lost our fur, even though it was freezing fucking cold and we was in the ice fucking realm, you know, most of the world was covered in fucking ice. We lost all of our fur. Really? No, it never fucking happened. And then through fucking millions of years we started to learn, well, it might be a good idea to put that fucking fur back on. It's just so ridiculous. It's heinous, and it's disgusting and vile that the human being could actually conjure up that sort of bullshit. And it's even more vile and disgusting that the fucking human race would believe it. They've all believed it. They've all swallowed it. Just look at it. Just put the pieces together. Why are we so vulnerable? It's because we weren't born to this planet, people. Why would we be born to this planet? Why would we be created from this planet? If we were created from this planet through millions of years of evolution, then you would have thought that we would be very, very immune to all of these things which sting us and want to eat us and poison us and all that. You would have thought that. Let's just take, for instance, all these animals which are indigenous to the planet. Every single one of them know that they cannot eat certain plants and foods which are poisonous. Why is it that they know that and we don't? Why is it that every other animal is born instinctively knowing how to swim if it should fall in water and we don't? We're not from here, people. We're not from here. And so when you look at any animals, but you could pick any of them, but let's just say squirrels, for instance. And if I offer my little friend who's scratching around on the settee now, she's going to toilet, something which isn't good for her, she ain't touching it. Why is that? Because instinctively, intuitively, they know. Why do they know? Through millions of years of evolution. Why don't we know what fungi we can eat and we can't eat? Well, we know now, some of us, because we've been told, because our ancestors have fucking dropped dead, because they didn't know. And so, hang on, how's that happen? You've got a pink ape and it doesn't know the stuff that it can eat and it can't eat. That doesn't work, does it? It works if the pink ape, which is placed on the fucking planet, then all of a sudden, holy shit, it's fucking freezing. We need to cover ourselves. That looks like a good idea. That fursuit in that fucking primate. Oh, I'm hungry. Let's have a look around. Can I eat this or can I eat that? Oh, this tastes nasty. That tastes a little bit sweet. What about that thing over there? Eat that. Dead. And then the rest of the fucking tribe go, hang on, that guy's just fucking dropped dead. And they probably wouldn't even realise, they wouldn't put two and two together for maybe millions of years until, you know, thousands of people in the same vicinity ate a certain something. And then people start to go, hey, what's the common fucking denomination? They ate that fucking mushroom. Anyway, people, again, talking very expansively, trying to reach you. Trying to open up your consciousness, trying to instill within you an ability to be able to think. But is it possible? Is it possible? If it is possible, it's only going to be possible in your time. You're going to do it in your time. And, you know, the things I say, you may somewhere, somehow think that those things are a little bit interesting. But unless they really mean something to you at this moment in time, you're not ready. And, you know, it's just a case of when are we ready? You know, we're all ready in our own time, aren't we? That's the thing about it. Some of us will never be ready. So for those of you that are watching my videos, at least there is a spark of something which is ready within you. Because otherwise you wouldn't be listening to me. And then when people disappear and they unsubscribe, when I've said one thing that doesn't comply to their ideal world, well, how ridiculous is that? How naive and how stupid and how dangerous. They've cut their own nose off to spite their own face. They just couldn't stand somebody else saying something that they didn't agree with. Well, it's always a very, very good idea to listen very intently to people that you don't agree with, because like the saying goes, keep your friends close but your enemies even closer. So this is why we need to listen really, really carefully to all conflicting opinions and observe conflicting attitudes and look at what our politicians and our neighbours and our aggressors are saying and try to get inside their mindset. That's what we have to do. We have to get inside. And so this is what the American government tried to do at some stage. They tried to get inside the mind of the Muslim. They tried to get inside the mind of the fanatic. They tried to get inside the mind of that indoctrinated, fanatical mindset. And of course it's really, really difficult because these fanatics have been born and bred, and they have had only one variety of information uploaded to them, and that's what they become. Whereas other people in the Western world, they've got a whole array of different information, different way of looking at things, and they can't get into the tiny minds of these you know, individuals. And so that's why they're a very difficult element to quantify. And you know, America's never been that psychological, to be frank. Maybe they're getting better in modern times, because the CIA has been involved in so much stuff, you know, for at least a good 5 decades now. But they realised maybe in the early 1900s that human psychology was a very, very powerful thing, and so then they started to get involved with the cousin of Sigmund Freud, Edward Bernays, and they approached Edward Bernays to impart his knowledge to them, CIA and people like that, so they can learn how to manipulate and maneuver the masses. And so, well, that's what it is now. It's a big psychological operation, isn't it? We can see that. They're shape-shifting, and they're showing us one thing and then they're showing us another thing, and then they're saying, here we are, hey, over here. Why are you looking over there? Here we are, and all this and so, and we're all like this. We don't know what the fuck's going on. So what you have to do is you have to come outside, and that's the benefit of a psychological investigation, human psychology. We have to know how the mindset works. We have to know how the individual works. We have to know how the hive mind works. We have to know the human consciousness on all facets, and it's a very, very precarious and interchangeable thing, and whether we'll ever work it out 100% is anyone's guess. But we're in that now, people. We're in that, the psychological warfare. And so it isn't just about, you know, machines anymore. It's war on consciousness. You know that, don't you? Anyway, enough said. I'm going to feed my baby.